too loud in my ears.
It's too loud.
The silence is too loud.
In my ears.
In my ears.
Oh, that's great. Hello, guys. It's the Witches, Magic, Murder, and Mystery podcast.
This is a side piece episode, and I am Kara.
And I am Megan. I've already forgotten how to pronounce it. Antikythera. Sure?
Uh-huh.
Guys, listen.
Words are hard.
I've reached the point where at this point I just start seeking out, like, how many words can I mispronounce?
I like it. I think that we choose the difficult ones.
I do it on purpose.
Yeah.
Today, I wanted to do something that didn't really involve a person. I didn't want to do anything sad. I'm tired of talking about sad things.
Right. Yeah.
So, in my research, if you all listened to last Friday's episode, then you heard me talk about that diamond mine.
Yeah.
That's not what this is about, but I'm just giving you an idea of the kinds of things I was reading. So many weird,
the weird
world
oddities
things
that Megan likes to Google.
This one is really, really bizarre.
Strange.
And the name of it is very difficult. Antikythera.
Antikythera.
Pretty sure that's right. So let's just remember that I said it right that one time, because I don't know if it's ever going to happen.
No, it may be different every single time, and we're going to just appreciate it.
Are you ready?
I think so.
I'm very excited.
All right.
Over 100 years ago, there were sponge divers out looking for sponges.
How cool.
In the Mediterranean Sea.
That sounds dangerous and terrifying all at the same time.
Yeah.
What is in that sea?
Well, one of the things that was in there, they found the wreckage of this Roman cargo ship.
Ooh.
Off the coast of Antikythera, which is a Greek island north of Crete. So from 1900 to 1901, divers retrieved various items from the wreckage and brought them to the surface, right? They found bronze and marble statues, jewelry, pottery, all sorts of large artifacts, and they also found what has come to be known as the Antikythera device.
Ooh.
But can you imagine, like, you're just down in the ocean looking for sponges. And it's not just like a shipwreck. It's a shipwreck full of actual treasures. I just can't imagine how incredible that would be.
Yes.
We don't really know why the device was on the ship, but they think that it could have been that all the things in that ship were being taken to Rome for a parade that was being put on by Julius Caesar.
Oh.
So think what that means.
Amazing.
Julius Caesar died 2,062 years ago.
Yes.
And they believe this device was on a ship headed to Rome for a parade that he was throwing. So they discovered this shipwreck in 1901. But the shipwreck itself dates back to the first half of the 1st century BC, which, as everyone on the Patreon knows, means before chairs.
Yeah.
Before they even had chairs.
So I bet they didn't find any on this boat.
Yeah, no one knew what to do with their butts. No. It was very confusing.
Right.
It was a confusing time. Everybody's
standing all the time.
Yeah.
Standing all the time. Standing or laying. That's all you get to do.
You can also find the birthday video I made for you in the Facebook group to learn about BC. Anyway, so this device is super, super, super old.
Yes.
Which is why what I'm about to tell you
about terrifying.
Is I'm going with fascinating.
Okay.
Terrifying. Okay. So initially, when they found it, it just looked like a lump of bronze because it had been laying on the ocean floor for
who knows,
2,000 years.
Yeah.
And so upon examination, archaeologists were able to divide it into 3 flat, misshapen pieces. So it was these 3 pieces that had kind of landed together and clumped together for hundreds of years.
Okay.
So they could tell that it had been part of something bigger. And there were bits of wood still on the fragments, which means it was probably housed in some kind of wood box.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
At first, since there were so many other obvious treasures, you know, they've got all these statues and jewelry.
They're just like
that's a lump of whatever that is. Who cares? Yeah. They just set that aside and ignored it while they focused on everything else. And then like a year later, someone finally got around to looking at it. And he was like, that looks like on one of the pieces, there's like a gear wheel embedded in it.
Oh.
And then he was like, it looks like some type of astronomical clock. But then other scientists were like, no way, not possible.
They couldn't have figured that out.
That didn't exist back then. Yeah. They were like, you know, we can look at all the other things that we found on the ship and tell what era they came from.
Right.
This didn't exist then.
Yeah.
They didn't have the capability.
Yeah.
So they put it aside because they were like, we don't know what this is and, you know, whatever.
Okay.
So ignored it for like 70 years.
Oh, wow.
So like I said, when they first started looking at it, they split it into 3 fragments. And then as they studied it, more fragments kind of broke off.
Oh.
I think the 3 fragments were kind of designed to come apart. But then after that, not designed, but they were already in 3 pieces when the shipwreck.
Yeah.
And then
just started chipping away.
More started breaking off.
Okay.
But they also found more pieces of it when Jacques Cousteau led an expedition to the shipwreck site in the 1970s.
Okay.
Have I ever talked to you about Jacques Cousteau?
I don't.
Well, it's the weirdest random little thing that everyone now gets to hear. My dad, when I was little, he helped work on the bridges that connect the keys. I did tell you
Yes,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, so he helped work on those bridges that connect the keys. And so he would be down there for long periods of time when we were in Kentucky. And when he came, I knew that as a kid, right, that he had done that.
Right.
When he came home, he would talk to me about all the stuff that he had done in Florida. And he would, like his bedtime stories, he would tell me about all the times he hung out with Jacques Cousteau while he was down there.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm telling you, forever.
You were like, who's this crazy
No,
man?
I didn't know it wasn't true. Like, I just was like, yeah, that's what he did down there. He hung out with Jacques Cousteau. But also, I didn't know who Jacques Cousteau was, so it didn't really mean much. And then as I got older and I hear, like, he's this, like, famous. And I was like, Dad,
wait a second.
And he was like, oh my God, Megan.
You've had that surgery.
None of that's real. Really good. Really good at telling stories.
Yeah.
So my dad, explored all sorts of things with Jacques Cousteau.
Hilarious.
Okay. So anyway, Jacques Cousteau found more pieces of it in the 1970s, still at the shipwreck site.
Okay.
And they've even found more pieces of it in storage. Like, they had found pieces and not realized those were pieces.
Oh.
And no one recognized them
random
for what they were.
Yeah.
So then they were just put away.
Oh.
So at this point today, there are 82 known fragments. The major fragments are labeled A through G, and the minor fragments are 1 through 75.
Okay.
So those major fragments contain the majority of the mechanism and the inscriptions that are on it, which I'll get to in a minute. Also, fragment F, which is a major fragment, is one of the pieces that they've discovered in storage.
What on earth?
What intern went through things was like, that's junk. We don't need
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
So anyway, in 1971, scientists used X-ray technology to study the fragments to see what was inside them. And that's when they discovered gears that have these really neat triangular teeth on them, the same as you'd find inside a modern-day clock.
Yeah.
And a ring divided into degrees, like a protractor that you use in school,
Yeah.
This is bizarre because it's so advanced. More X-ray imaging was done on the device in the 1990s, and they realized it contained 30 geared wheels.
Oh my gosh.
And scientists realized you could hold the device in your hand and track the paths of the sun, moon, and planets with impressive accuracy.
Oh my gosh.
Right. So they figure all this out, but they don't know what to do with this information. The shipwreck, like I told you, happened in the first half of the 1st century BC.
Yeah.
And we know this device had to have been created before the shipwreck.
Yeah.
And at that point, scientists believed it was manufactured sometime between 70 BC and 130 BC.
Oh my gosh.
Before chairs.
People were really struggling back then without.
So they just stood looking at the sky all the time.
Yeah.
And they were like, boom. So no other geared mechanism this complex has been found from the ancient world. In fact, not until medieval cathedral clocks were built 1,000 years later.
Oh my goodness.
So what is it?
Yeah.
And who made it?
Yeah.
And how?
Yeah.
So let's tackle the what is it first.
Okay.
How do I say it? Antikythera.
Yep.
Antikythera? The Antikythera mechanism is a 2,000-year-old hand-powered device that displayed the motion of the universe, predicting the movement of the 5 known planets at the time. So they could what they could see with their naked eye, the phases of the moon, and the solar and lunar eclipses. It has been called the first known analog computer.
What?
It was originally housed in a wooden box about the size of a shoebox with a circular face on the front with rotating hands. There was a knob on the side that you'd use to wind it up.
Oh.
And you wound it by hand.
Yeah.
And you could wind it forward or backward, just like how you're winding a clock now.
Yeah.
When you turned the knob by hand, the interlocking gear wheels drove at least 7 hands at various speeds. So, when you wind a watch, and it moves the hour hand and the second hand, the minute hand. But they move at different speeds, right? So the hour hand moves slower. So it's just like that, except the mechanism wasn't displaying hours, minutes, and seconds.
Right.
It was displaying the positions of the sun,
So like
moon.
all the phases.
Yes.
Oh.
Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn.
Oh.
That was one part of it.
Okay.
It also had a rotating black and silver ball that showed the moon phase.
So it would like shadow it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
2 dials on the back of the case give even more information. One was a calendar, and the other showed the timing of lunar and solar eclipses. Wow. The whole thing is covered in Greek inscriptions, which act as sort of a built-in user guide for the device. A few of the inscriptions explained which stars rose and set on any particular day, and scientists are still currently deciphering some of the descriptions.
That's so crazy.
Most recently, they realized that the dials on the back have the names of all 12 months, and they're in the Corinthian language.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll get to that in a minute, but it's a really ancient language.
Yeah.
Inscriptions also show that the calendar is organized into 4-year cycles, which was common for the Greeks because every 4 years they had the Olympiad.
Right.
Which was common for the Greeks because every 4 years they had the Olympiad, which was the predecessor to our Olympic Games.
Yes. Yeah.
It also, there was some other athletic festival that they marked time with, and it was included on this device too. I just can't think of what the name is, and apparently I didn't record it.
That's fine. It's fine.
Yeah. There's a star almanac on the front of the device that we still don't really understand, and they're still trying to figure that out. So we don't know if the Antikythera mechanism was a toy, a teaching tool, or if it was used for something else.
Right.
Now, who made it? Aliens, right?
Aliens. It had to have been aliens.
I mean, not according to science, but
Yeah.
according to me.
Right. Yeah.
And us and all of you.
Ancient Aliens. Yeah. And that person with the wild hair on Ancient Aliens probably knows all about this.
The bath salts guy.
Yes.
I mean, real quick, I just wanted to say, I was going to talk about this at the beginning, but I really love it when we get into real sciencey topics like this that are also questionable.
Yeah.
Like, I wasn't going to talk about the diamond mine thing because it's easily explainable, but this isn't. And I also enjoy that we have a podcast that's got like witches and magic in the title, but we also talk real about science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because, you know, they don't have to be mutually exclusive. You
can
enjoy all of it and believe in all of it. It's perfectly fine.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I told you that the names on the months.
Yes.
That's Corinthian.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting to. Thank you for reading my mind. And it suggests the device, or at least whoever created it, originated in Corinth. And this implies a connection to Archimedes.
Oh.
That's how you say it, right?
It is.
Why am I doubting it all of a sudden?
I don't know.
Archimedes.
Yes.
So he lived in that area and is known to have calculated the motions of the moon and the known planets. And he wrote a manuscript, which has since been lost, but it was on astronomical mechanisms. Now, he died in 212 BC.
It's probably in the Voynich manuscript.
I mean, maybe it's all together.
Yeah.
So he died in 212 BC, which would mean if they're right about when this device was created, he may not have been around for when this particular device was made. But here's the other thing.
What?
The Antikythera device is so advanced and so high quality that scientists are like,
they had to have started somewhere.
Yes, there had to have been predecessors to this device that we've just never gotten to see. Because there's no way they created such a perfectly done astronomical clock like this on their very first try.
Right.
One scientist said, "We believe that this mechanism cannot have been the first such device since it is so sophisticated and complex. And we don't understand why this extraordinary technology apparently disappeared for several hundred years, later to emerge in the great astronomical clocks of the 14th century onwards." You do find several references to similar devices mentioned in classical literature, including a description of one made by Archimedes. But this one is the only surviving example that we've ever found. And I think before this, they kind of thought, well, it's just written down. It could just all be, who knows what's real.
Yeah.
So whether this particular one was designed by Archimedes, we don't know, at least not at this point. But it's believed that the instrument was designed and created by Greek scientists, and they haven't really even reached a true consensus on exactly when, but it's a ballpark of 100 BC, give or take 30 years.
Okay.
So no matter when, it's way before, cheers, way before they should have been able to.
Right.
Just this year, actually, researchers proposed that the initial calibration date, like when it would have been made, and they started the calendar, may have been December 23rd, 178 BC.
Ooh.
But then other researchers are like,
How do
no,
you know
it couldn't
that?
have been, so you don't really know. Regardless, it was long, long before what we'd previously assumed was the time when mankind had this sort of capability.
They weren't clubbing people or dinosaurs.
And like that guy I quoted before, they apparently had this capability and then stopped.
Right.
And it never showed up again.
Yeah.
Until the astronomical clocks of Richard of Wallingford and Giovanni di Dondi in the 14th century.
Oh.
So the calculations and technology used to create the elliptical paths of the planets and the retrograde motion of the moon and Mars by using a clockwork type gear train with the addition of a pin and slot mechanism
So crazy.
predates that of the first known clocks by more than 1,000 years.
It's wild.
It's like they did all this and then what happened?
Right.
Because typically we have advances and then we build on them.
Yes.
And they didn't.
It's just maybe because it didn't get shared. It was lost in the sea and they were trying to take it to be like, look at our invention. Because what if that was one of the things? It was like a round table of like, bring your inventions. And they're like, look what we have.
But then,
or maybe they were using
there's
that
just
to try.
one.
Right.
I mean, that's what it doesn't, I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
So it's not even like they had the capability and it stood still.
Yeah.
It's like they had the capability and they did nothing.
Right.
And then it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
They completely stopped creating these complex geared devices.
Yeah.
Oh, a cool thing about how it tracked the moon. So the moon, as it rotates or as it orbits the Earth, it moves at different speeds. It's called Kepler's law of planetary motion. This difference in speed is modeled by the Antikythera mechanism, even though ancient Greeks were not aware of the actual elliptical shape of the orbit. So they had these two gears linked with a slightly offset axis.
Okay.
And that accounted for this difference in speed.
Oh.
Kepler's law was not established until the early 1600s.
Right.
And it's not necessarily that they knew the law. Mm-hmm. It's just through all the observation
Yeah, they're
and
just
the math,
studying it. Yeah.
they realized it moves at different speeds. And
Can you imagine it
somehow,
being one person's job to just monitor that.
oh my God, yeah.
I'm picturing the little old man at the top of Nightmare Before Christmas in his little turret, just watching him.
staring.
Yeah.
But like, they realized it moved at different speeds. And then not only that, they realized how to make a mathematical equation to predict all of it.
Right.
And then furthermore,
Yeah.
they figured out how to create a device that would be able to
do that
replicate
for
that
them.
motion. Like,
Yeah.
it's insane.
Yeah.
So the main mystery of this is, how was it created around 100 BC, 1,000 years before we ever see this type of technology again?
Yeah.
And, well, that's it.
Yeah. Like what? And we don't know. Like
Right.
what happened? How?
Currently, all known pieces of the device are kept at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens.
Okay.
And they're, is it Athens?
Athens. Athens boots
Let's
were
say
off.
it again. We have an Athens, Kentucky here, you guys. So, of course we do. We also have Versailles instead of Versailles.
Versailles. Yeah.
But let me say that whole sentence again the right way.
Do it.
It is currently housed at the National Archaeological Museum in Athens. And there continue to be dives in the area in the hopes of finding more of the device. So they're still looking.
Oh my gosh.
And they did find, they originally discovered it in 1900, but then Jacques Cousteau found more in the 70s.
Right. So
it's
we need to go
possible.
to Greece.
Yeah. So I just put here, so aliens? Do you
Yeah,
think?
for sure.
The other possibility is that, and I think it's a human trait to do this, we just sort of automatically assume that we are the top of everything.
Right.
And we just are like, oh, people back then, they didn't know. Like,
Right.
we're the smartest.
Right.
We are the most technologically advanced.
Yes. But what if it was like a star child? What if the aliens communicated, or what if the gods were aliens or are aliens? What if they communicated with the people and were like, hey, here you go.
here's how
Here's
to
my
do it.
knowledge.
You can track the stars.
Yeah.
I mean, I also think it's highly likely that we just don't give ancient people enough credit for how smart they were.
Yeah.
Because, yes, we are very technologically advanced, but like the technology we're creating, it just makes it so our brains don't have to work as hard.
Yes.
And I feel like it's making us dumber. You hardly have to stop and figure things out anymore. You can just Google
Exactly.
literally anything you want to know.
We do it often.
Yeah. How do you pronounce this?
Yeah.
And it's really something to think about as far as our brains evolve. We're not, I don't know, are we using as much of that? I don't know. I mean,
Yeah.
not a scientist, but it's really interesting to me to think about how I think
How
our
things
phones
have evolved,
think for
but
us
have
now.
they really? Yeah.
Yeah. Technology has evolved.
Right.
Has evolved. But what about our brains?
Exactly.
Also, I don't know that very many of us have the patience to do the kind of
Right.
long, deep thought
Yeah.
that they would have done. Like, who's going to stare at the sky
Uh-huh.
and figure things out?
Yeah.
You know? Willow. For sure. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's just an interesting thing to think about. Like, what the heck?
What a cool story.
I mean, not even just that it was created, but also the whole thing about how they stopped making. Like, they didn't even make clocks. Like, they just...
Right. And my thought is, what if it was they were like inventors, but it was like a secret and nobody knew about it except for these specific people traveling with this party to Caesar or whatever to go to these events. And all of a sudden the shipwrecks and these people are no longer, they didn't share this information with anybody. And it's gone.
I mean, the whole thing of there had to have been predecessors to it. It makes me wonder about, like, what happened to those. But if there were only a few, some articles kind of try to suggest that maybe these were a lot of people, a lot of Greeks had these and used them. But I'm like, I mean, I feel like if they were really widespread, surely we would have discovered at least one more by now.
Relics around,
You would think. The other thing would be maybe pieces were found, but they were just dismissed as like...
and then they just got rid of garbage.
Because the main thing that happened here is it was very simple to be like, we know exactly what time period this came from.
Right.
If they found it in a different place, I wonder if they might have been like, well, it's not that old.
Yeah.
Or something.
Maybe.
Again, not a scientist.
Yeah.
But I really loved it as I read about it. It just blew my mind.
That's so cool.
And the whole thing, too, about how the people who work on it now are handling a thing
that were made before chairs
that existed over 2,000 years ago. You're holding a thing that is over 2,000 years old. Like, I love old things. My grandparents sold antiques, so I have a thing about old things. I would much rather have something old.
Yeah, with character.
Yes, that's been passed through and has stories attached to it. Even if I don't know the stories, like somebody owned and loved this thing at some point.
Yes.
Somebody put several somebodies put a whole lot of thought and care into creating this really incredible device. It's wild. Now there are people who are looking at it and
baffled.
Yeah. I just love it. I love the way this thing is almost like a time traveler.
Yeah.
Right? Because it exists now and it gives us this brand new bit of information. That no one would have known without it.
Right. Oh, it's so crazy.
Okay, so
I love that.
You guys want to hop in the Facebook group and chat about what
tell
you
us
think
what
this
you think
is,
it is.
And that it's definitely aliens. That'd be great.
Yes, tell us that it's all the aliens.
Okay, that's it. We love you
so much.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.